Hi everybody and welcome back to the ProBuilder How to Make tutorial series recreating the E1M1 level from Doom in Unity 3D. So here we're finally going to jump into really making the level feel like a full level by adding in the ceilings, since last time we added up all the walls and now we can start capping everything off. So right away I'll just start in with the easy things, usually just like in doing a test back in high school or something. First fill in all the easy stuff or the easy answers, and then you can move on to the trickier things once you have everything else built in. While you're doing this, it's a good idea. As you can see right here, I'm quickly filling in some extra areas. I needed some extra geometry there I had forgotten. Make sure that you are checking things and not just blindly filling them in, so that, again, this will be pretty much your final geometry for the level itself. Make sure it's all tidy and where it ought to be. Things like hallways, of course, are going to be very simple. Just bridge them straight across. When you get into areas like this, I find it works well to just use a combination of grabbing simple edges and then moving around in a radial type fashion. If you have something like, in this case here, we have the center portion of the level causing a bit of a trouble here, but if you move just around the edge and not try to go all the way across at once, it tends to work pretty well. And always remember that you can select multiple edges and connect them to add extra geometry, so you're not stuck with any, or you don't have to only work in quads. Again, ProBuilder will properly triangulate everything you create, so no worries about creating slightly more complex geometry, because you'll need it while you're capping off these ceilings. Also keep aware of the ups and downs. Stuff can get a little bit more complex now that you have to work both in horizontal and vertical spaces. So this is a great place. I think while building this, I was actually constantly pausing and restarting the recording and just going back to the actual game and checking how the level looks while you're playing the game. Run around in it, have a good time, no reason not to, and just keep an eye on how the level actually looks, because it's important not to miss anything while you're building this section here. Again, just like that, make sure you use that nice handy ability to chop things up, and of course the top, side, etc. viewpoints can be very handy to use when you need to make sure things are lined up exactly. At this point you're probably starting to have quite a bit of geometry on the screen, so another area where using, as on the right there I have the top viewport on, this can be very handy so you can see exactly where things are, and not have to deal with the uncertainty that the perspective or orthographic views can cause. This way, just like that, you can see that I'm able to line up the vertices exactly on top of each other. Again, ProGrids really helps with that as well. And then bridge across anywhere that you can to make that simple. So as you can see here, I'm just moving around the edge, finally up to about the front area here. And just finishing off this little area here. Almost have the first room complete already. Using that top view over there on the side to make sure I'm getting these vertices lined up just right. And then we'll just need to add some extra geometry and finish this area off. Here it gets a little tricky. I'm noticing that I had to turn back and do this a different way. When I was adding in all that extra geometry, it complicated things a bit. All I really needed to do was, just like that, extrude out, pull the extra vert in, collapse it down with the one on the end there. So there we have one room basically finished. We can start on to the little hallway area on the end here. These we can't do a simple bridge because of that extra bit of geometry there where the tunnel collapses or the hallway comes in together. But simple enough to just pull the edges over and then merge the verts in. So on this last little area, we still need to add just a little bit of extra geometry to it. Change up the method. Yep, there we go. So pulling it over does the trick. And then we can just merge the vert over, or collapse it in, that is. Nice and simple here. And And then the top of this room is going to be very similar to the bottom. In this case, I can almost exactly follow the lines that I have set for the bottom. So I'll just grab all the top area here and pull it straight out. And if I want it to be perfect, I can make this fit with the cylinders that are in the center here. But I can save that for later if I really want to just get the ceiling area built in for now, and then I can later go back and edit that up. Up in the further area here, just need to extrude some edges again. Move them out. This one's probably the simplest part so far. And collapse those verts in once they're set as they need to be. And back here, now that this roof is in, I can cut in some extra geometry that will allow me to cut out holes for those pillars, since we don't want to be wasting any extra texture space. So I've cut basically a quad into the top, and now I'll just need to line up the verts. This can be a bit tricky to see since we can't really tell where they are unless both are selected, and even then it's a bit of guesswork and starts to look a bit strange. So sometimes a bit of a combination of both the isometric and perspective views can work. There we go, have that one, and now we'll try a slightly different method on the other side. Once again, I'll cut in the quad that I need to add there, and then just align it using the grid to a square. This is actually a much smarter method, should have thought of that the first time, and drag it over. Done. So even while you're working, you'll probably find yourself figuring out new and better ways to do everything. Practice makes perfect. Always experiment, try different methods. Checking out all these areas and making sure that there aren't any missed places, and welding together verts that don't need to be there, of course. Keeping things efficient where possible. Alright, and we can move on to the red room here. Again, a little bit tricky with all those items in the center. We could pull this straight up from the side. It's rather going against what I usually say to do, which is to create or to go around radially. Here's actually one more way you can do it. Again, doing the semi-radial technique, except using a totally different object. Using a full quad like this, or a full box, gives you a little more sense of what it is you're working with, instead of just having edges to work with. So you can see it in the invisible back faces don't cause the confusion that they sometimes do. And really this is just one other way to do it, whatever seems to work best for you. This can make it a lot simpler to do sometimes. And here I'm deleting all those extra interfaces so that I can extrude them straight out without having extra bits on the inside. Of course, I could have just deleted those later, but this way I know for sure that they're not in the way. And then I'll go through, and here I'm going to delete all the extra faces, that is everything except the bottom. And come to think of it, an easier way to do this would just be go into the side view and drag select everything on the bottom. Control-I, Control-Shift-I to select the opposite, and hit backspace to delete. And then we can move back inside here. Move these verts in so that they match exactly as we need. Add some extra geometry if we need to match them up. And I'm matching these in so that I can merge the ceiling into the same object as the walls, and then collapse those verts together. So I need to make all the verts match up to the same points as on the walls. Can't have any extras there. And occasionally We actually need some extra geometry. Looks like here there's an edge where normally it would look like just a try, so we'll just connect it there, no worries, and we can merge the vert up. And still just adding geometry where needed, moving verts where they have to be, collapsing them down to a single one as needed. And fixing up this little area here. I think we started working on that before and just moved on to something else by accident. So there we go. That's all fixed up now. Just checking to be sure there's no extra faces up there. And here we actually forgot a whole bunch on the bottom of this item. Delete those and make sure there's nothing else extra lying around inside of that. Looks good so far. So now we can select both these items, merge them, and then make sure and select all the verts and hit the weld button, or Alt-V should weld it. A couple extra verts that we need to weld here. And we can move on to the second hallway. Things should be extremely simple here. Just bridge across each of these little areas. Sometimes selecting the exact edge can be tricky. Remember Alt-B for bridge, super handy, just like that. And that one's done. On to the slime room. So back to the additive method. Except this time, we're going to just stretch straight across the entire center from one hallway to the other hallway end. And if you have any area where there's a large room, you need to fill it up, and there aren't any pillars or posts coming up through the center, but there is a hallway on either side, a doorway, this can be a very good way to first cut it up and then start just basically pulling out from the sides any extra geometry that you need. So here we can just create some extra edge loops and use the geometry created to match everything up. Once again, using the top view over on the right hand side there really helping to match all the verts exactly where they need to be. Some of these areas just going to need a little bit of extra geometry as well, but first keeping it simple and adding in the parts that I can, not worrying too much about stretching those verts and tries if I can help it. As always, taking the easy routes first, getting everything done that we can, and then taking care of the trickier, more difficult areas. And we can now select all the interior faces, or the bottom faces, that's all we need. And then hit Control-Shift-I to select the outer. Oops, actually first we need to add on the last area here. Forgot that hallway bit. And now we can select just that, hit Control-Shift-I, and then backspace to delete all those extra faces. This vert really doesn't need to be there. You can move it to either side. And do some repairs on this here. Once again, hopefully watching the mistakes I make can help you guys avoid these when you're building those walls in earlier. Always be very careful that you're not accidentally merging verts together. Check carefully before you collapse any verts. It looks like that's what happened here. While I was hastily moving about and trying to run through the level, I collapsed a few things I shouldn't have and caused some weird geometry issues there. Still need to fix up this area here as well, it looks like. And I accidentally pulled this over where I shouldn't have, so we're wasting the texture space there. We'll just need to move this around a bit perhaps, unless I've already welded it. Nope, still separate luckily. There we go. We have an extra edge there. We can connect between the two. It gives us the other vert that we need. Place it exactly where it ought to be. And then merge this extra vert created when the edge connect. Place it back on the very end corner so that we can collapse it down together. And then we just need to move those faces back down to where they were supposed to be, since we had moved them up just to be able to edit them separately. Oops, didn't mean to delete that. We just need to pull it back down. Bit of extra geometry work here. Once again, fellow watchers, be careful of your geometry as you are creating it. It's easy to get working too quickly and mess some things up. Take your time. Learning the hard way here, but I think we've got that fixed up. Making sure everything is still back at the same level. Needed to fix that vert there, and then weld all those verts together, just to make sure it's all one continuous piece. And we're on to the second to last room here. This one should be fairly simple. Once we merge these verts over and get rid of this excess geometry, now we have a very simple single bridge, all done. Keeping everything as simple as possible, definitely the key to making things work out well. We can bridge across there, here as well. And the same for the other side. Things get a little trickier as we get towards the corner, of course. We can pull that right out. Take the corner to that corner. Or even save a vert or two there and just merge these right over. And pull that back as well. Always good to look out for ways that you can save a few verts. Oops, and once again, check before you collapse things. Sometimes it's easy to accidentally select an extra vert that you didn't mean to. Multiple times. Again, I delete that from the video, but good to show that things can go wrong. Careful about that. And a lot of times it's not as obvious, where that was very clear that I had messed it up. Sometimes, as in the case of those walls we were editing before, you won't know until hours or days or much further into the level that you've accidentally merged or collapsed or deleted some items that you really shouldn't have. So that can cause a lot of trouble later on. Be sure to watch it carefully while you're doing it so you don't end up with trouble further into the level. Here, once again, my short-term memory is causing some trouble. I'm trying to remember how I did the other side exactly. I'm not sure there's a good fix for that, or I would try and recommend it. Looks like I just had the geometry slightly different over here. So we can just delete that, pull it out. I believe that's how we did it the first time. The bridging straight across almost works, but the tries get a little bit messed up. We could probably just reconnect that try. And that does actually work. except the normals are now flipped just like that. We'll just need to select the faces and hit the flip normals button. So sometimes what happens here is when you flip the direction of the triangle on the inside of a quad, occasionally you see this. This is actually one of the very few times I've seen it happen. The normals will get flipped. You'll see that how they were basically the back face became the opposite side, and you'll just need to select the entire quad and hit flip, or the triangles, whatever it might be. Very simple to fix up if you happen to see that. And then here we just have the usual all sorts of extra verts to weld together, optimizing wherever we can. And then that should do it for the room there. On to the smaller final room here. A couple simple welds and then a single bridge, and that's all done. Almost forgot, we do need some ceilings in this area. Once again, this should be incredibly simple. Just some quick bridging work. And yep, don't forget, you can bridge on a tri, it doesn't have to be a quad. Bridge, bridge, bridge across all of these. Looks like I accidentally deleted a face. And across that, and we're done. With that tunnel area, that is. Down to this tunnel here. Again, some pretty simple bridging work. Making sure to get all the areas here. Luckily all very quick and simple. Bridge tool is a lifesaver for sure. Back over to this area for the... actually back over to this area for a fix-up again. Yay, lots of mistakes for you guys to view in this video. I'll call that a feature. You get to see things that have gone wrong and how I'm fixing them up here for the most part. So this is something you definitely want to avoid. As I'm looking back and forth here, I've got a face that has ended up taking up the same place, going in both directions. That's a definite no-no. Not going to be something you want. And this is just because I made a mistake in the level design early on when I was setting up the walls. This ceiling should actually be much further down here. And we need a little bit of extra geometry for the support beam on the side. And now I can actually just bridge straight across here. In this case, finding that mistake has actually simplified things a bit. So that's it for adding in the ceiling. Luckily this was a pretty simple tutorial, although various mistakes and issues found in my previous geometry. Hopefully some of the fix-ups in there are something that will, or if it comes up for you guys, you'll be able to then follow through some of the same things I did here and fix up whatever you had. But really the easiest way to fix those is not to cause them in the first place, by taking time with the geometry and making sure that while you're building it, everything is coming together correctly and not rushing too quickly. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It's been a nice quick one compared to the previous wall one, and definitely look forward to seeing you in the future tutorials. See you there. Thanks.